All right, welcome to our Haddonfield Public School District Board Meeting, April 23rd, 2020. We're streaming live on YouTube. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask Mike to take roll.
Mr. Benford. Justin here.
I see him. He's on mute. He just joined.
I'm here.
Okay. Ms. Crooked.
Here.
Ms. Hogue.
Here.
Ms. Hogartle.
Here.
Ms. Klittner.
She just joined.
Just joined.
Yes.
Susan, you here, Susan?
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. Ms. Paoli.
Here.
Mr. Vecchio.
Here.
Vice President Seidel.
Here.
President Sangillo.
Here. Okay. Let's see. Got the Pledge of Allegiance. You could all rise where you are. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mike, can you read us the statement?
Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Superintendent of Schools in the following manner. On January 10th, 2020, notice of this meeting was posted on the interior of the school administration offices, 1 Lincoln Avenue, Haddonfield. Written notice was submitted and filed with the Haddonfield Borough Clerk, and notices were faxed to the Courier Post and mailed to the Retrospect newspaper.
Thanks, Mike. So we're going to start with, first of all, thanks everyone for being here in this unusual format. We are going to go through our agenda that was made available on the website. Our first item is a presentation by Chuck Klaus about our aftercare service, before and aftercare child services. Chuck's going to walk us through the
process and
process.
make a recommendation, right?
Yes. Okay.
I'm going to share my screen here, so this is my first time doing it, just in case. I'm having problems sharing here. I actually rehearsed this earlier tonight with John Miller and it worked well. Now,
So along the bottom, you have your.
no, I have that. I have that. It pops up to share the screen, but the share button is grayed out. It won't pop in to let me hit share as an option.
Oh. That's odd.
Chuck, it's a Google slide.
It's a Google slide, yes.
Can you email the link to Chris and I real quick?
Sure.
Chris can present it as the meeting organizer.
All right.
All right, so we're waiting on Chuck to get his presentation.
I actually emailed. I didn't get to the I emailed the board members this presentation and some other materials that I would have handed out in person. So we'll wait and see if John can get that up, and then I'll cancel out of this and try this one more time.
Yeah, are you trying the present now? I have the present now in the bottom right.
Yeah, that's what I'm using. Oh, here we go. It looks like I got it this time.
All right, Chuck's Chuck's making it happen.
There it is. Is it up?
Yes,
How do you
All
get
right.
all those? How do you get the tile view, Chuck? I don't have the tile view.
you
I
have
don't
to
know.
change it. You have to change it along, well, let's just get involved.
Yeah, are we on the first screen, the status update? Because I can only see this.
That's right. RFP status
Okay.
update before and after care.
So just to take you through what we did, the first question is why do we do this? Why do we open up this RFP for before and after care? We've had Haddonfield childcare with us for 35 years, and the answer is pretty simple. It's best practice to review contracted services regularly. We do it with custodial substitutes. We do it with all of our services. So we decided it was a good time to take a look at this. And we had two main foci. The first was the structure, what services we're getting, not in the area specifically the curriculum, academic support, because there's homework support you have to hear, enrichment opportunities, STEM and STEAM programs, the physical activities, and the SEL connection, because part of our district goal. Obviously, financial impact was looked at. We wanted to see if there's any potential savings for parents and potential revenue for the district. Two things we did want to make sure we knew in the RFP that were included. This does not include EDKP. It is purely before care and after care. And in the RFP, it states that all Haddonfield child care workers are provided a first right of refusal for employment. Taking us through the process, we had two committees. We had an interview committee and a submittal committee. I'll go into both of those details a little bit. But here you can see the members of the committee. And in the interview committee, we had board members, administrators, central office administrators, and building administrators. John Miller was there because of technology issues that may come up in the program. And the submittal committee was from the business office. They actually looked at the RFPs. Our exact process was on February 28th. We posted the RFP. There's 7 companies submitted proposals. On March 11th, we sat a panel of 10 and met with all 7 companies for about a half an hour each. They submitted materials to us. We had questions for them. And ultimately, the final scoring was based on a criteria of the interview portion, counted for 75% of the score. That questions are focused on supervision, staffing, training, the programs, academic, enrichment, physical, communication with parents, and how they would implement the program, how it would run day to day. And secondly, the submittal score, which was the business office area, that was the RFP. It looked for qualifications of the staff. They checked on that, experience, references, ability to perform services, cost criteria to be proposed on those things. So that was 25% of the overall score. And by doing this, we narrowed the pool down to 7 down to 2 finalists. The 2 finalists were a company called Alphabest Education and Right at School. We had planned to do unannounced site visits. We had arranged unannounced site visits. We're going to go to different schools and see the programs in action to see what they look like. But as you well imagine, with the coronavirus, that didn't happen. So we did reach out for references. I reached out and hit references on Alpha Best. Larry reached out for Right at School. I talked to 4 people. We're communicating with 4 people for Alpha Best. Principals from Mount Olive, Warren, Happochtong, and Milburn. Milburn, this is their first year with Alpha Best. Their principal there, the one principal, said they loved it. It's been a great program. Parents were pleased. She has no concerns. The staff is easy to work with. Mount Olive and Warren both talk about good program, organized, well-structured, work well with each other. Catherine McFadden, the principal from Happochtong's pre-K2 school, they were their second year with them. And she said they really think they're doing a great job. They're very complete. They're very pleased. Any concerns were addressed in an appropriate and timely fashion. This is a school that, as we're struggling now, this is a pre-K to 2 school where last year they had a mold issue. So in about mid-spring, they had to take all their pre-K to 2 kids and place them in different buildings around the district. So they had pre-K to 2 kids in high schools and middle schools. And Alpha Best, their program followed them to those locations, and they were able to make it happen. There were some hiccups, but she said they handled them all well. Her favorite part about it is Alpha Best works and hires community members, and she said they can tell they care. They care about the kids, they care about the community, and that's really one of the all-time. That's one of their favorite things. Larry did some interviews or reference checks with Best right at school, and they were not as positive. Larry, I don't know if you want to speak to that or if you just want me to summarize, but
yeah, no, Chuck, I think the summary is good. Stay positive on the one that won the bid. But no,
Okay.
I met with Radnor Township and Upper Marion superintendent, assistant superintendent. Talked with them, talked with principals, and no, it wasn't. The references were not as good as your references.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on that, Larry?
Sure, Heather. Just that there's there was a little bit more of startup issues that they had. Both places started this year. Both said that it took a while for them to gear up. We'll certainly have bumps in the road in Haddonfield too, but they both said it took 3, 4, 5 months to really straighten everything out, and they were pleased after that. They were fine with them after that, but nothing was glowing, Heather.
And one other real quick follow-up question. Did they give you specifics so that if we go that route, we might be able to mitigate the same problems? Or more high level?
There's always problems in starting up. I would guess, Heather, depending on the organization, on how the type of people that they hire, how they train those people. So, when you say mitigate startup, when you hear that the startup was bad in 2 places, I don't think I would chance it.
Great.
Okay. I pulled up a quick comparison chart here. You can see of our current provider, Haddonfield Child Care, and some of the categories looked at, Alpha Best and Right at School. They look, you can look across and you see that the costs are roughly the same. The big obvious standout puts out there is the proposal amount, that the money that Alpha Best is guaranteeing is significantly more. You see the years of experience, the staffing ratio, and the overview of the programs. I pulled some highlights together from all of our current programs. This is Haddonfield Child Care stuff. The big plus here for the Haddonfield Child Care that stands out to me is the community involvement and connection, right? This is something they do very well. We would hope that if whoever we go with could try to follow up in those footsteps, because that's important to Haddonfield as a community. These are some of the Alpha Best programs. The curriculum partners they work with are impressive. There you can see how they break down their 9-week rotations in different areas of arts, technology, and STEM, world language, and the makerspace days they have. And once again, the curriculum partners are an impressive group they work with. These are all the programs they use in their piece, and they're right at school. And the program components, you see that's how they make up their daily day and their focus areas of their curriculum. Ultimately, when we did the tally, Alpha Best had the highest score in the rubric we rated on. And so my recommendation would be that the next board meeting, we approve Alpha Best as the new before and after school provider at the school, at the district. Any questions?
Chuck, can you tell us where Haddonfield Child Care fell within that rubric?
They fell on the lower half. Out of the 7, they fell in, it looks like 5th. Or I'm sorry, 6th.
Any other questions for Chuck? Okay, thank you, Chuck. All right, moving on with the agenda, we're going to go to committee reports. David, do you have anything for curriculum?
Sure. We met on April 8th. Couple things we discussed was the curriculum committee needs out of the business administrator position, as well as the superintendent and assistant superintendent position. Seeing what, we gave our feedback on the opening, that Larry created. And then we looked at the questions and delivery structure of the parent survey see how remote learning is going. I know that's a presentation I believe Larry's going to give next week at the public meeting for the results. But we really just looked at the questions and then the structure of the question. We reviewed the latest minute meetings of the LPDCs. Those are the meetings of the learning professional teams. I won't really go through this, but we were happy with how remote learning had gotten off the ground, and so really that's what it mostly covered. And then we reviewed the professional development paths for educational assistants to see if how we can retain some of the EAs that at some of the schools that we've previously not been very successful at. And what we learned is some of the things we discussed were obviously the non-monetary side of what we could do to be more efficient in using those resources. And then we went over the spring science reports for science for the New Jersey SLA tests. And so the 2019 tests, and then we evaluate the Linkit information that goes, that is now in the 2019-2020 school year to see how we are moving based on the deficiencies that were pointed out during the 2019 standardized testing round. So if you think about that, every year, we do the math and science and English, but on the science side, it's the NJSLA tests, and then the Linkits line up to say how are we going to meet how are we doing in filling in the gaps that standardized testing exposed in the district, as well as the progression for the students themselves as they move from the one year to the next to make sure that they're not falling further behind. Obviously, we don't have many that are behind in the first place, but we still want to measure to make sure that they're on par. And then the last thing we reviewed was at the time, and every day seems to be like a week. Like we're living in dog weeks anymore, but the elementary support structure that was in place on the 8th of April because of the school closures. So we just wanted to see how our youngest learners were faring. There's a lot of things to be able to measure the older students, between their activities in their Google Apps for Education areas, as well as Canvas. But on our younger side, we just really want to make sure that the support was there for them to be able to continue to learn. And we were happy with what was presented to us.
Great. Any questions for David? Okay. Give it a second because anybody unmute it? Okay, thanks, David. Next is Susan. Do you have an update for finance facilities?
Yeah, we met on Tuesday of this week. Mike gave us a preview of the budget. We went over that, and we continuing on with the budget is status quo, although reading in the newspaper, it's a Ouija board looking at the state of economics, not only in New Jersey, but what they think is going to happen in municipalities, the federal government. But this state budget is still on track, for May 15th adoption. So we'll get that presentation at next meeting. We talked about security spending. You'll see there's 2 items on the agenda. One's for digital cameras. That was a recommendation from the community committee, and it's a good one. Digital maps and security cameras. the idea is that do the things that should something horrible happen, that you can quickly respond, that the digital maps show the responders exactly where they are in the building, where to go. The cameras then show what's happening. And it's something that now is considered best practices. So you'll see those two on the agenda. Now, the security cameras are eligible for the school security grant from the state. The issue might be timing with that, because you can't have retroactive funding for that. So that has to be pursued a bit. But one of the things to see is the cost of the cameras. This is inside and out for the whole district, $354,000. And you can see that we are the beneficiary right now of the collapse of jobs out there in schools. So the vendor is very, very motivated, and we got a super good price for that. So just so that we're ready to go. So that's why it's on the agenda to approve that. We also discussed the child care, which Chuck just went over. The current year extracurricular and athletic stipends, I think there was a ruling that came down from the state to that go ahead and pay those. And I think the decision was that coaches are reaching out to their teams and doing what they can remotely and engaging the students. And then also talked about some changes in positions, about kindergarten enrollments, that even though like right now, I don't know if there's any update on that once mail was picked up, about a kindergarten, one less at Tatum and one more at Haddon, but it's pretty much just a wash. So that's the quickie of our meeting. Is there any questions? Kind of breeze through that quick.
Hey, Susan, it's Heather. Oh, Larry, can I ask a real quick question, or do you want to fill us in on something?
No, go ahead. You go.
I love the cameras. I just am curious, will they be a continual live feed, or are they more for retroactive watching but could be turned on for a live feed, or how do they work, or how would they work, the ones we're going to get for that price?
John, I don't know if you want to take that. My understanding, Heather, they could certainly be a live feed. The principal will have the ability to live, as well as the police department will have the ability to watch those live. But we also will store video for about 30 days. John, am I accurate with that?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. The camera system comes with software that if we wanted to configure someone's workstation to view a certain set of cameras in live view, they can. But simultaneously, the cameras are being recorded, and the NVRs were sized for 30 days of storage.
So one more real quick follow-up. That was a great answer. Will the police have the ability to turn them on remotely, or do we have to turn them on at our location first for the police to have that view? Or is that just something we don't know yet, but will be worked out as you progress?
So
they're going to have live. Good, John.
They'll have access to the live feed. We already have, I believe it's called an MOA. Mike can jump in on that. But we already have a board agreement with the police where they have access to the cameras that are on the backside of Tatum now. And there are parameters of when and how they're allowed to jump into that live feed. And for the new system, we would follow the same exact guidelines.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. My only addition to what Susan said is that tomorrow Polly's got a newsletter coming out, and we've got a pretty comprehensive article on the safety and security items that will be approved next week at the board meeting.
I just wanted to point out and ask, this wasn't bid because RFP Solutions is the state contract. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, that just means that we already have there's a state consortium of buying power, and we just tap into that. So there's no need to bid. It's already the guaranteed low price at the state, right?
Correct. And I actually like to point out for that and the other security item on the agenda, this is coming out of next year's budget, not this year's budget.
Oh, okay.
But yes, David, you're right. The bidding's already done through a cooperative purchasing agreement.
Thank you.
Okay. Lynn, you have a policy update? Did we meet?
Yes, so we had our last committee meeting on April 9th and discussed two policies. The first one being the policy 2624, the grading system. As I mentioned last month, a project team was created in order to assess whether we should retain our current 7-point grading scale or move to a 10-point grading scale. At the last project team meeting, which was back in March, on March 10th, we identified 6 research questions, and various members of the project team volunteered to conduct that research. So we have our next project team meeting next week on Tuesday, the 28th. So we'll share our research and discuss our findings. So hopefully next Thursday, I can give you an update on that. We also discussed policy 8505, which is our local wellness policy. We talked about the need to assess our current wellness and nutrition standards in the district and to ensure compliance with the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act. We also recognize that this evaluation would encompass a lot of areas, so more than just meals, but also snacks and vending machines and class parties and fundraisers. So we decided our best first step was to establish a district wellness committee, and Chuck and Mike's our district wellness coordinator, they were working on setting that up. So that's where we are now.
Thanks, Lynn. Any questions, comments for Lynn? Okay, Jamie, you want to give it up?
Just from a review of the next week's public action meeting, I didn't see any. Are there any second readings?
No, I don't think next week, because we did all the stress. ESME policies were passed last month.
Right.
And
Okay.
these are just in the works. So no, not for
Thank
next week. Yep.
Okay. Jamie, do you have anything for communication?
Yeah, I don't have a lot. We were working on an article with Polly that she's going to do for Haddonfield Living in May about the communications committee. Part of our April board meeting bulletin will be in there, and it'll at least give the community a little bit more information about that. We also worked on a press release for the before and after care decision, which we discussed tonight. And we'll get together to make the April, well, I guess the other one was the March. For the April board meeting bulletin, we'll work on that after the next voting session.
Okay, Jamie,
Any
thank you.
questions?
Tom, how about an update on negotiations?
Yeah, we met just this past Monday with the association, had another round of discussions. We have another meeting on the schedule for May 5th. I'm going to provide an update on the substance of the negotiations during executive session at the close of tonight's meeting. But I did want, while we were in public session, to just note my personal thanks and the board's thanks to the association, to our committee members and the administration for being so flexible with respect to what is a very large virtual meeting. And it's certainly been appreciated so that we can try to stay on track with that and get to a good solution. So wanted to say thanks during this public portion.
All right, Tom. And again, we'll talk about some details in exec. So thank you for the committee reports. Chuck, do you have a assistant superintendent report or anything to give us tonight other than the presentation you already gave?
No, the presentation was it.
Okay. Larry, is there anything?
Yeah, just Adam, I'm sure people are wondering, just as we are, about returning to school. We really have no idea. We have no guidance. As I said, we have a newsletter coming out tomorrow. It's addressed in there. All we know is the governor said he will let us know after May 15th. That does not mean that we're going back on May 17th. He just said he'll let us know. So we have really no idea.
Hey, Larry.
Yes, Heather.
I'm sorry. Real quick thought on that. I know we have to wait for the governor. And so I would hate for anyone to spend a ton of time on this when this may not be the path that it ends up being. But it would be interesting if people could think if there would be something we could do technologically to have maybe a virtual graduation ceremony if we cannot do it in person.
Yeah,
Just because
great,
that might take
great.
some time to put that together. Or
Can I
Heather,
speak?
great. Yeah, we've been talking about that for a while, actually, Heather. Probably before we went on spring break, Tammy and Chuck and myself, actually the whole team, is talking about it. And I believe we did not bring it up. The last meeting we had on Wednesday this week was really on the survey. So we didn't really get into the plans for graduation, senior awards, things like that. But we are working on one, Heather. So we're with you. We agree. I'm sorry.
I love that you're thinking about it. That's enough. We have some time for sure.
Yeah.
Tammy, did you want to jump in? I thought I heard you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. I actually started a committee with senior parents. We're actually going ahead and planning virtually and figure there's no harm in it. So we're looking at a car parade. We have a banner going across Kings Highway we're looking for. We're looking at different production companies that could help with the video. I was going to do it, but then I realized I might have bit off more than I can chew. And so we're already starting the research. We figure if they get, we're also looking at senior gifts. Helping me order black boxes to put diploma, yearbooks, awards, scholarships, nice big bow, so they have memorabilia moving forward. So we're kind of doing both so that what's the worst case scenario? We have a ceremony and they get these nice gifts from us. They deserve it after this year. So we're actually just completely moving forward for a virtual, working on the car parade, everything. And then if we get word that we can have some form of ceremony, I don't think if we can, it would be able to have an audience anyway. We'll be prepared.
Awesome.
Sounds great, Tammy. Thanks.
Yeah, that does sound great. I would love to jump in about the going beyond that. I am very concerned about our post-COVID world, and I am 100% certain that when September comes, whatever it will be, it will not be a September back to school like we've ever had before. There will be differences. We will not have a school as usual in September. So I would love to think that we're going to start putting together a plan A, plan B, plan C. Plan A is September comes and everything is back to normal. So we already have plan A. But what's plan B? What's plan C? And I know that it's so ridiculous to talk about something that we have no crystal ball. We don't know where we're going. But I think we need to start sketching out some broad strokes things. And some of you have heard me harp on this before, but something that's so very basic. The CDC tells us that our front line is social distancing and hand washing. And I think that we need to make sure that we've got every single sink in those schools working, that we've got water, that we've got soap. And I know that they get vandalized or whatever, but I mean, we're talking about life and death here. So I would love to see us start to put together what are our plan B and plan C broad strokes for our post-COVID back to school.
Linda, we are meeting with the nurses actually next week to talk about what reentry may look like. And once again, we won't know what September is going to look like, but their plans are looking at all possibilities and what that might take in terms of lunch, right? I mean, if you look at social distancing, you might be able to have small classrooms. When you put 300 people in a cafeteria, you've lost all that. So how we have to attack those. So we are thinking about it. And like, as I said, the nurses have put together a preliminary plan, and we're going to meet next week and look at that and talk about ideas for the future as well. So we're looking at that as well.
And isn't the county, and weren't you at a statewide conference calls where they're looking at contingencies for different situations as they might occur? Was that what those calls were about?
They were more about finishing out this year if we can come back. So it's a teacher evaluation models because that's going to change completely. So it was more things like that than it was September or coming back. In the meetings, you get the feel that it's going to be difficult to finish this year.
One of the areas that we commonly are planning for reentry in the fall is the understanding that there might be a 50% capacity issue, and that's for spaces. So I would recommend looking at what hybrid virtual and in-person schedules would look like, where people are on kind of A-B schedules, where A-B isn't what class you're going to, but it's, are you at home or are you in class? And understanding a schedule that balances the distance, but also gives the appropriate amount of face time, and live person instruction as best as you can. So I would heap that in there. I don't know if the guidance from the state has come down there in New Jersey, but in Pennsylvania, that's one area that we have to look at.
Dave, that kind of thing is the thing that I was thinking of. Is it a 20-minute session that everybody watches at home, and then it's split half and half for the FaceTime? I mean, this is our world, and it's so hard to be thinking about that. It's so far away, but given how much has to be planned to get there, I think we need to think about that now. And again, I'm going to say it again, we need to be able to have hand washing in those schools. That is a basic requirement that if we need to find money, I think we need to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of this I know is just airing out in public what I know many people are already talking about in private. And I know I've heard, members of the administration, talk about, concerns that parents might have, but another one is, summer's, rapidly approaching, and, parents, especially the younger kids, are questioning, what's going to happen with summer camps, or they're thinking, hey, my kid needs additional attention. So, what can the district do to help me? So just another thing to, put out there that I'm sure you guys are already thinking about, or I know some of you are already thinking about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's, keep us up to date, obviously, as you guys develop these plans and these contingencies, and we'll keep this dialogue going. I'm moving along in the agenda. I did not have a specific report, so we're going to move to the public comments section. Again, we are combining the public comments on agenda items as well as public comments for the greater good. If you could, when you, John, you can start to put the poster up on the information up on YouTube. If you can, when you dial in, just state your name, just the street where you live, just where in Haddonfield. Not you want to need your specific address, and then just let us know whether you're making a comment on the agenda or whether you're making a comment on something non-agenda item, just so we are aware, we can take proper notes.
While we're waiting, I'm going to just, as a fellow bearded man, Justin, I'm very proud of you.
What happened?
He has a beard.
I didn't notice that. I just noticed he was wearing a t-shirt. I was like, look at Justin all relaxed over there. I've been wearing the same button-down shirt for the last 2 weeks. I keep it.
Yeah, I'm eating my dinner at the same time too.
I had to tease you a little bit. I like the goatee. I wasn't looking at your facial hair, David. All right. Yeah, reminder, turn the volume down at home if you're gonna have a question. John's gonna let us know if somebody jumps on. I guess we'll see it on our screen. So currently we don't have anyone. It takes a minute, so there's a delay on YouTube, so we're just gonna banter about here while we wait for someone to call in. So the topic is Justin. So if anyone has anything that they want to, say, now's the time. Just kidding. Okay, I'm not. Give it another 30 seconds. We don't have to rush.
Sure, I did want to comment that in our last meeting, which was mostly executive session, we did discuss one open topic, which was the opinion of the police department requesting that we remove the basketball hoops from basketball, the outside basketball courts on our campuses. And did that take a long time? I noticed they were down.
No, it didn't take a long time at all. We actually, some of the alternative was we bolted some I don't know, plywood or whatever type of wood to lock the hoop off.
So someone's in, Mike.
The outside basketball courts.
They need to be.
Yeah, whoever dialed in.
Hi, it's Laura Miller.
Hi, Laura. Can you turn your volume down on your YouTube screen just because we're hearing?
You got it.
Awesome. Thank you. Laura, thanks for calling in. How are you?
I'm good, but somebody was still speaking about basketball, so I'll let them finish.
We'll get back to it.
Well, we had. It's just because of the delay, you were still hearing it.
Right. It is a little confusing because the video doesn't actually line up with the audio.
Right.
So, right. So it's a little confusing from the watcher's perspective. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. So is this, first of all, the time where you mentioned you can ask any question, or is this just about the agenda?
It's anything. It's anything, since we're only going to have one open section.
Okay. All right. So regarding, I'll just bring up the 5432 policy. Since everything is in flux right now in terms of obviously where we are with regards to students and learning, and I know we're kind of taking one day at a time, and we're really trying to work with what we have. I know I heard Lynn speak about the, the grading, the 90 10-point scale, and I do have some concerns with that, but I really wanted to swing back to the 5432 and ask if there was any consideration to possibly re-examining the policy, especially because of the AP testing being, having some changes this year. Each year is different. You don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And regardless of whether we are dealing with something similar or something completely different, I really do think that we should consider removing taking the policy and chiseling it down into two policies, and then taking the AP portion and reevaluating whether we want to go, or you would want to go to the 10-point versus the 12 points, whether you take the test or don't take the test. Regardless of COVID, my own daughter had an experience this year that dealt with the AP Latin teacher being out on maternity leave, which she has every right to do. And she left at the end of October and didn't come back until the beginning of March. And so most of the teaching for the AP test actually occurred during that time period. The substitute teacher did her very best, but she didn't completely teach all the material. And it's a perfect example of why you don't tie the 12 points or 10 points to the actual taking the test. Because my daughter decided before COVID that based on what she had not been taught, and learning Latin on your own is actually very hard, that she really was not going to be comfortable taking that exam. So every year is different. Every student experiences different experiences. And whether, a teacher has an issue, a student has an issue personally, a student's parent has an issue, it should really be up to the student whether they take the test. And it should not be tied to, to their, to the weight. The weight really should be tied to the rigor of the class. And we should leave the decision whether to take the class or not, take the test or not, up to the student. And if the rigor needs to be changed because one class is not as hard as another, then change the rigor. And you could do that obviously based on the class. If an AP class is not as hard as another AP class, change the rigor. Change the rigor, change the weight based on the rigor of the class. So I just ask that you reconsider that policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Okay. John, would they be queued or would they have just jumped in?
There's a second caller in there right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
hi.
Okay,
Laura, Laura, did you have other questions?
Laura jumped off, so I think that was it.
Oh, it's Linda. Oh, okay. I guess I'm a little confused. So she asked a question and there's no response?
She asked us to consider reviewing policy 5432, and we will take her question under advisement. So I think it was a fair question and an equally fair response. Who is this?
Hi, this is Linda Skirm. I live on Ardmore.
Okay, great.
And I have a senior and an 8th grader. So I'm more concerned, even though it's not really pertinent to me, is the after-school care. And I'm wondering why. I know, Chuck, you said in the beginning you decided to look at the vendors. And I have to say that the vendor chosen looks like they offer a lot of different opportunities to do after school, which Haddonfield Child Care did not do. But have we ever asked Haddonfield Child Care to say, please offer more? And what guarantee do you have for this franchise to maintain the cost for the parents? And then my other question is, what's the revenue gain to the school system with bringing in the new people?
Well, I can't. I'll tell you it's a complex set of evaluation tools, but the specific answer to your questions, I don't know if Haddonfield Child Care was contacted over the last 30 years about what opportunities the opportunities to change their system.
Right.
There isn't a guarantee to maintain cost, but it's a 1-year contract with AlphaBest. So if they plan to change their rates, we can look at other vendors. And the third question, it was in Chuck's slide. AlphaBest has guaranteed their pricing is similar to what exists, and they've guaranteed revenue of $55,000 to the district. So I just thought I'd give you those answers.
All right. Yeah, I guess I would also want to have, I know you all are going to vote on it next month, I'm guessing, next meeting. So
yes. Next week. This is the work session for the voting meeting next week.
I'm just thinking, considering, I guess I'm wondering, could you guys sort of change the sequencing or the frequency of how you announce something and then vote on it shortly after? That I don't feel like there's a lot of time for public comment for whether it's this policy or any other policy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we came up with this communications committee. This, I don't know, Linda, we've been talking about this for many, many months. I don't have the notes in front of me in terms of when it started. But the RFP, I think Chuck's slide said the RFP went out in February 11th. So that was 3 months ago, more than 3 months ago. And that was a very public announcement that we were doing the RFP. We got feedback about doing the RFP. So the idea that this is a one week announcement is inaccurate.
Oh, no, not that it's a 1 week announcement, but I didn't realize it was presented in its conclusion today.
Right. So
that's what I mean. So that's what I'm saying is the public doesn't have a lot of time to review it and everything else and know that you guys are voting on it next week. So unless the public, and I missed it, given all that was going on in February and March, that I don't know if all the elementary school parents are, up to speed. Since you're really impacting them, you're not impacting me.
Right. Yeah. No. We've heard from a decent amount of elementary school parents with different various pieces of feedback. So I'm pretty sure people were aware, just based on the contact that I and the board have received.
And generally, though, although this is not a policy, you mentioned this and other policies. The law is that we have 2 readings of policies, and since we meet monthly, and this is a promise we've made for a very long time, is that a policy is read and we don't act on it for 30 days. So when it's announced, these happen. So this is no different than that. This RFP was floated as Adam said months ago, and we have discussed it. Now this is the 3rd meeting we've discussed the output of that. And we actually have discussed with the incumbent provider, what changes were coming down the pike. So it's not a surprise to the vendor either.
Yeah, we actually had 2 different conference calls with Haddonfield Childcare, one a month ago and one this past week after our committee meeting. And it was in our the notice of the RFP and the plans to evaluate the offering was in our February 14th newsletter. So we're really, Linda, I don't mean to battle you a little bit, but we're really trying very hard to be as transparent and open with the public about changes that we're making, whether it be big changes or small changes. From our perspective, it's hard. It's hard because when we finally get to the day of making the decision, we inevitably hear this: "How could you be doing this? You're making a decision and nobody knew." But long list of evidence of trying to tell people this is what we're looking at and this is how we're evaluating them, and then we're just doing our job. I mean, our job is to put a group of people together. We had, Chuck's slide showed it. We had 15 people in the room. This was not a board decision. It was not an administration decision alone. It was a group of people working together to try to do what's best for our kids. That's where we are.
Yeah. Okay. I did have one more and it just went out of my brain. I would like to also mirror what Laura had said about reconsidering the 2 points for the GPA. Again, if the classes are not doing, say they're both AP, and if they're not doing the same curriculum, then they have to. To me, they should be on par, and it's not. And I'm hoping Colleen can change that as time goes on, because it's definitely true in high school. The classes are, some teachers just don't cover all the material. Other teachers do, and that's all they do. So I do hope Colleen is able to put some kind of standardization across not how it's taught, but what it's taught. And I also don't know if you take the class and if it's an AP class, then you should get the full credit. I don't think it should be test dependent as to whether or not you get the full credit. And yeah,
Colleen's doing a lot of good work, so I'm sure she's taking notes. And if you missed the video because you're on YouTube, but I'm looking at 16 pictures and Colleen's cat just crawled behind her head.
No, I was watching it on YouTube, but I didn't want the feedback. I ran upstairs.
No, you can't really watch while we're taking the calls. It's just a poster, so you can't see us. Thank God.
We can see you.
I know.
And I think that's all for now.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now. I'm going to start a morning show. Do we have another caller?
It does not look like we do right now.
All right.
No more callers.
All right, John, flip that screen back so we can see David, and we'll work through this agenda portion of our work session. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Linda. Thanks for those watching on YouTube. This is actually, it's working well. So public comment. So let's dive into the agenda. Again, at the work session, I don't read through the agenda like I do with the voting section. We take it section by section. So the first section is governance. We're approving 2 job descriptions, account manager and an educational technology advice assistant. Anyone on the board have questions or want to have discussion about that?
Are either additions to headcount or replacements?
Well, I could speak for the accounting manager position as a business office position. That was the old me. So we, as far as FTE, after Steve left, we've technically been down 0.8 of a person. And once the transition in the business office goes where the board wants it to, this would bring it back to where it was when Steve was here.
Fair enough.
I had a question. Are we finished with that one before I jump in? Did I cut you off?
No.
I had a question for 18E, and I have a couple questions. 18E and F. For
We're not
those
at 18 yet.
I thought we were in governance.
Oh,
We
I'm
are
sorry.
curriculum and special education.
Yeah, that's the next section.
Oh, I'm trying to do, I can't see the, all right, never mind.
It's quite all right, Jamie. I just want to make sure we didn't cut anybody off if they had a question about the educational technology advice assistant. We're going to come right back to you. Did anyone have the ETDA question? Okay. Go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
All right. Oh, that's okay. I'm trying to look at both you and my agenda. For 18E and F, are these both contract for special education evaluations? Is that?
Yeah, let me let Gino respond to that.
Yeah. Hi, folks. So what we typically do is we enter into a service agreement with County Special Services, Burlington County Special Services, Camden County Special Services, in the event we need their services. So it's just a service agreement. There isn't an expense that goes along with that. And I'll give you an example of why school districts, it's routine to do things like that. So about a month ago, we had a student have a medical procedure, and they required a very specialized level of educational service that we didn't have in the district. Now, instead of waiting 2 months to get a contract and to have to get an agreement signed, we were just able to engage in a cost proposal and then engage with them to retain a teacher of the blind. It's very specifically a hearing implant specialist. So those are the kinds of things that county services provide, specialized instructions things. So it's routine that every year we renew a service agreement with them. In many cases, in some years, we go not spending a dime. In other years, when a service comes up that we might have a specialized need, we look to county services because their costs are the lowest compared to the private sector. And then for additional evaluators, kind of the same premise. We have people in the stable in the event we get swamped or behind with testing or evaluations. And we're currently anticipating that once school reopens, we are going to be up to our ears in evaluations because students continue to be referred for special education. Students continue to require reevaluations as part of their triannual reevaluation. And we're not doing any of those evaluations, and they're all piling up. So as soon as we open, we're going to have a backlog of evaluations. So to be able to expedite if we should need additional outside evaluators, we're just ensuring that they are already approved so we can move on that and be as efficient and maintain state and federal guidelines.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Okay,
And
any other?
my next questions on personnel.
Okay, any other on curriculum and special ed, section 18? Okay, we're going to move on to section 19 personnel. I think we're going to say it twice probably in the work session, but Laurie Bushy has been with us for 27 years. Chuck, you could say, maybe speak to it, but long tenured educator is retiring, and we're going to approve that next week. So we'll want to thank her for her time officially next week when we vote her to retire, and we'll want to thank her during this work session as well. Tonight we'll do it informally. Thanks.
Adam, thanks for bringing up Laura. She definitely deserves it. I was also sad to see that Dana Bissinger is resigning. I'd have to reopen it. I think it was a resignation, but she was a wonderful teacher as well. That'll be a loss.
My comment was actually on Laura Bushy because we have her retiring in June 30th, 30, which I'm guessing she doesn't want to do another 10 years. So
looks like sounds like a typo.
Yeah, I'm sure, but then we have.
We'll fix it.
Yeah, I think we should just keep her for 10 more years. Let's do that to her.
She gave a decent amount of heads up notice, right?
She has nothing else to do.
We have time to plan.
All right. Any other personnel comments, questions?
Are we going to gloss over 19D?
D. Oh, it was. No, I guess we're not. We didn't prepare our proper fanfare, so we are having. We have agreed that we're going to be hiring Chuck Klaus as our acting superintendent for the next school year after Larry's departure. I did not see it on here. I thought we had removed it. So obviously we want to do this with a little bit more fanfare, and we're going to have a release for the public talking about the decision and how we're excited about it. But since we're in public session now, we'll start talking about it. The board is very excited about Chuck filling the role of superintendent. He's been with the district for a very long time in many roles as assistant superintendent, principal of the high school. Chuck, you could give me the rest of your resume. I wasn't prepared, but I will say this. The board had a lot of discussion. So in addition to having a relatively short launch ramp to hire Chuck, we had the pandemic that we have been dealing with as well. So the board decided because of the pressure of the situation, the time pressure of the situation, and the abnormality of the world right now, to hire Chuck on an acting as an acting superintendent. And what that means is he's getting a 1-year contract from the district. You can look at it 2 ways. So I'm going to be bluntly, it can be looked at as a 1-year trial or a 1-year interview. That's not really how the board was feeling, giving him the acting. We felt like it was a responsible way to bring Chuck into the seat, but the board as a whole has an enormous amount of confidence in Chuck's ability to take this role and lead us into the future. So we're very excited to have him. I got screwed up because I thought we were saving it for the agenda next week, because it's a very big announcement. Hiring a superintendent is the most important thing that a board does, and we couldn't be more excited about the future and Chuck's role in it. In the last few weeks, Chuck has been working with Larry and the board, to talk about where we are, where we're going. The board believes in the direction of the district, and we believe Chuck is the captain to take us in that direction. So I'll congratulate you, but I'll also open it up to the board or your administrators who are on the call to congratulate you as well, if we want to take a moment to do that. Let's hear it for Chuck.
Here.
Yeah.
So are we so excited that we put it in there twice? D, Andy?
I can explain this. So this is to satisfy the county Department of Ed. Technically speaking, when you're in an acting position, that can't be your position. You have to be something to be acting. So technically speaking, Chuck will be assistant superintendent, but will be acting superintendent.
I see. Okay. As I didn't know why that was in there, but
Yeah,
that's fine.
no problem.
And I, for one, am so happy that he's going to be in that role.
Well, the first one, we're adjusting his pay to what his new responsibilities are, but as acting super. So you see, it says, first one says assistant superintendent, the other one says acting superintendent.
Got it. Thanks.
And then we are opening up we're going to approve the advertising of an acting assistant superintendent internally. And if we don't get any, candidates out of that, or don't approve of any candidates out of that, then we would open it up externally.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks, Chuck. Thanks for stepping up. I mean, he still has to say yes, and we're actually going to have an executive session after the meeting to go over contract language and stuff, and those matters for getting this official. From the next steps are, we have a contract that we agree with, Chuck and the board agrees with, and then we send that contract to the county superintendent for approval. And then we sign and we're ready to go. In the meantime, we are going to start the process, as David said, to look for an acting assistant superintendent. So we'll see what happens there. So good stuff. Chuck, you want to say anything?
No, just thanks a lot, guys. I also wasn't expecting to talk about this.
You have your Darth Vader voice on.
Oh, hold on. Is that better?
Nope.
Yeah, marginally.
Well, I also wasn't prepared to talk about this tonight, and I would certainly make my first speech by being more articulate than what I do right now. But it is an honor. It's a privilege. I'm really flattered that you guys have this confidence in me. I'm going to prove that the confidence is well deserved. I plan to move the district forward in a good, positive way. And I'll talk more next week about it then.
All right, great. And we'll get you a new microphone before next week. Not a big role. Thanks, Chuck. I mean, we really had a good. I don't want to keep talking, but it's been we had a lot of work to do in the last 2 years, and Larry has done a phenomenal job. Larry and Chuck have worked really well and very closely together, preparing for what the future what lies in the future for Haddonfield School District and our children. Larry, do you want to jump in? I mean, we can say something next week.
Yeah, no, you picked a great individual. You picked a great guy. You picked a guy that's as honest as the day is long. You picked a guy that's an excellent educator. Picked a guy that's a team builder. More importantly, picked a guy that's been in Haddonfield. Talked about Laura Bushy. Picked a guy that's been in Haddonfield a long time. Knows all the players. Knows all the people. I can't be happier with the choice that you made and the direction of the district, guys. So Chuck, you always had my 100% confidence, and you'll have it going forward. So good luck, guys.
Thank you, Larry.
All right, great. So it's public. All right, there we go.
All of this.
No, that's good stuff. All right, anything else on personnel? We're moving on. And enough of this Chuck stuff. All right. No other person will go to approval.
So on the budget. So it's the other big thing we do. We do three things, right? The budget, hire a superintendent, and set policy. So in this budget, it's just really more of a question for Mike and just kind of and maybe Susan could chime in on this. Last month the state did talk about what the state share would be for all the districts in New Jersey. Likelihood of that coming to pass. Mike, what you got, and Susan, what you got? I would think it would be hard to go back on stated numbers, and maybe somewhere down the line in a future budget we'll see the impact of this year, but hopefully we don't see it in June or in July 1st. So what's your opinion, Mike?
Yeah, this is something we definitely talked about Tuesday. the state hasn't made any changes to any state aid numbers. What I've seen heard happen in the past is the state will recoup their money somehow, but it won't be in the form of reducing state aid, and certainly not in the middle of the year. Or they'll do something else to us some other way in some other form of funding next year that isn't state aid. So again, I probably sound like a broken record to the finance committee, but it's one of those whose crystal ball works better with people, because I mean the same scenario with the closing of school or opening of school next year. It's whose ever guesses better at this point, but
Sure.
Nothing as far as anything definitive on changing anything currently for the budget next year as far as state aid goes.
And what about debt service aid? Same thing?
Same thing. That's staying the same.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I sort of want to throw a couple cents in here talking about this budget. I mean, we have to be. We're going to have. I mean, we're going to have to. The idea that the state is holding up closing their budget until after our budgets are all laid out. The state's going to have a good idea of what, of what the districts are doing. It's just it's a scary time. I mean, the state, the amount of money that the state is spending right now without revenue. If you think about all the sales tax and all the revenue that they're missing, it's a worrisome time to be funded by it's a worrisome time financially, but I think as we look over this budget, we have to be mindful of the situation of where we are and what the current state of affairs are, because I don't think anything is a given right now. I think everything is up in the air. And not to be too dramatic about it, but there are going to be changes. I don't know how fast they're going to come, but the fact that the state is holding up their budget till after we close ours is concerning, because they have the flexibility when we'll no longer have ours. So I think just we have to be conservative, and we have to be smart. We have to be as responsible as can be. Not that we aren't always, but it's just a scary time. Okay. Any comments on this, on the budget? Questions about how it works? Anything else other than the budget pieces?
Hey, Adam.
Yes.
I had a question, and I do think there's a concern about privacy, so maybe this is not the best place to discuss it. Let me know if we should take it to exec, but I just had I was interested in a little bit more details around 20I, because it just seems somewhat unusual, but I'm happy to follow what Dr. Priolo and our solicitor recommends, but I was just curious to hear their take on it. I don't know if we can talk about it in an exec or if it can be addressed now. A little bit more info.
Well, it's
Yeah,
on
I
an
was curious
individual.
about that as well.
It's an individual student. I think we have to. I think we have to do that in exec. Let's play on the safe side and not release an individual student's identity accidentally. So if you don't mind hanging out when we close a meeting, we'll open up an exec to talk about that as well. We'll add it to our agenda.
Thank you.
Yep, sure, no problem.
Just as a matter of policy, so when we get redacted documents, I would suggest we also redact the signature and not just the label. Not that either of these writings are very legible, but sometimes signatures are. So unless we have to see the signature, I'd recommend we don't see the signature. I have no idea which either one of these say, but
yes, in the future, we're going to redact everything, but just so the board knows, for a little more peace of mind, just for the board, that's not public. Only the board sees that.
Oh, okay. I don't even want to see the signature, to tell you the truth.
I agree with you. Next time, going forward, they'll always be blotted out.
Yeah, but like I'll just say public. I can't read them, but they should be
they're
blocked out.
illegible. They are illegible. Unless you know the person's signature. All right. Anything else on 19, 20, or I'm sorry, 20, 21 minutes, 22. You already handled anything there? Okay, can we get a motion to go to exec?
I'll make the motion.
A statement, anything for the statement, public, I'm sorry, board comments for the future consideration of the board. Okay, not hearing any. A motion to go to exec?
So moved.
David?
Second.
Voice
Yeah.
vote? Oh, that was Linda Hertzgirdle.
Linda? Okay.
Second, yes.
All right, folks, we're going to shut down. Go ahead.
Can we take like just a 2-minute bio break real quick? I'm going to need 2 minutes.
Yeah. Take your time getting into I have to get Gino the invite to the exec session as well. So we'll see you in the exec session. For the public, we're going to close this portion down, and then we have an exec session, and that'll be the end of the meeting. We won't come back in. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to our IT team for putting this together. John and Ryan, John Miller and Ryan Shoppy put this together so we could broadcast to you and do our obligations to hear the public and be in a public forum. And then our administrators who have been here tonight from home, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. I'm sure it was totally interesting. Okay. Good night, folks.